Welcome back to another video where I convert Deep Rock Galactic enemies into monster stat blocks for your 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons games. In this video I'll be giving you 7 stat blocks, but these will not be your standard fare bugs. I'm referring to the rival tech. The rival tech are a collection of deadly machines created by a rival mining company to harvest the riches of Hoxxes before DRG can do so. So I'll be recreating these machines in D&D. So first off, let's start small and take a look at our first tiny mechanical menace that DRG's staff have aptly named the Shredder. The Shredder is a tiny construct that has a 14 armor class and 13 hit points. Not super tough, but it can fly with a speed of 40 feet, and has resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from attacks that aren't adamantine, as does every stat block in this video. Additionally, it has immutable form, which is also something all rival tech will have. The Shredder has pack tactics which help it perform better in a group, but it also has a new feature called Shredder Pack Maneuvers which even further enhances its team coordination. Since this feature gives the Shredder a +1 to armor class, attack rolls, and saving throws for every allied Shredder within 15 feet. These two features combined makes a pack of Shredders a nasty thing, but it doesn't end there. The Shredder's pouncing peck attack is nothing special in the damage department, but targets hit by it need to make a wisdom saving throw, and a failure will result in temporary vulnerability to the next Shredder melee damage that the creature takes. This means that if you're surrounded by Shredders and aren't feeling very wise that day, these Shredders might begin a chain of double damage against you. Now it must be mentioned that this vulnerability ends when you take the damage, or when the Shredder that caused it starts its next turn, meaning that a lone Shredder cannot even make use of this effect. These Shredders are weak by themselves, but in a group they will shred you to bits. So moving on, next up on our list of Nokia nightmares we have the turret. Now normally the turret comes in two forms in Deep Rock Galactic, the burst turret or the sniper turret. In this case, to keep things simple for you, I have combined both of them into one unholy act of God. The turret is a medium construct with a 13 armor class and 52 hit points. It has 5 feet of movement along with spider climb, meaning it can be on the walls or the ceiling. It also has some new features to talk about. The heat vents feature is one that many of these machines will have. The feature states that when the turret takes 10 or more fire damage in one turn, it will need to make a saving throw. If it fails, it becomes vulnerable to fire damage for 1 minute, or until it uses its action to vent. It also has an overshield feature which gives it a +4 to its armor class, bringing it up to a 17 AC. This bonus is lost, however, if it takes damage, and it doesn't get it back until its next turn. Finally, the turret has a new feature, and one we will see again on another stat block very soon. Target acquisition is essentially a resource that the turret can build up and use during combat. The turret starts with no target acquisition, and gains 1 every time it attacks an enemy, so long as it continues to attack the same enemy. Now note that it does not need to hit with the attack to gain target acquisition. Now if the turret does attack a different creature or just doesn't attack at all, it loses its target acquisition. Now if you're confused, don't worry because I'll explain further after we look at the turret's attacks. So like I said before, this is both the burst and sniper turrets combined. The turret can make a multi-attack where it attacks 6 times with the plasma laser shot, which may seem like a lot until you realize the shot deals 3 damage on average. The turret can also make 1 focus shot, which deals a bit more damage but can also add target acquisition to the damage. Okay, so now is when we start to apply the target acquisition. You see, the purpose of the plasma lasers is not to deal a ton of damage, it's to build up target acquisition so that the focus shot can deal a ton of damage. So if the turret begins round 1 with 0 target acquisition and makes 6 plasma laser shots against 1 target, each shot will give the turret 1 target acquisition, resulting in 6 target acquisition by the end of round 1. Importantly, the plus to hit on the turret's attacks says 5 plus target acquisition, meaning each of those shots would have a greater chance to hit than the last, with the final shot in the first round having a +10 to hit. Now if round 2 comes along and the turret makes a focus shot, not only does it have a +11 to hit, but it can also spend that target acquisition to add damage to the shot. It gets an average of 2 damage extra for each target acquisition spent, meaning this focus shot would deal an average of 25 points of damage instead of the normal 13 if all 6 was spent. Of course, the turret could also make more plasma shots to up the target acquisition even further, but it relies on not losing sight or access to the same target as well as not dying before then. So all in all, this target acquisition is what sets the turret apart and makes it a deadly foe, if not dealt with quickly. And it will do exactly what it does in Deep Rock Galactic, which is force the players to break line of sight if they want to avoid being killed. Moving from the turret, we have another turret type enemy. However, this one is a bit special. The Repulsion Turret has similar attributes to the turret, except notably this one is actually immobile. It does have one new ability though, and that is Plasma Force Field. This attack creates 3 Wall of Force panels. Normally with the Wall of Force spell, you can connect 10 of these 10 foot by 10 foot panels. Well, this turret as an action can create 3 of them within 5 feet and they don't have to be connected. Like in Deep Rock Galactic, these panels will move outward from the turret. Now, these panels do share attributes with a Wall of Force panel, except that when they move into something, that thing takes 22 points of force damage. And if 1,000 pounds of force can move it, it's going to get pushed along with the wall. If something or someone is caught between the panel and something the panel cannot move, like let's say a building, whatever is caught between is going to take 44 more points of force damage before the wall disappears. Because like the ability says, if the panel hits something it cannot move, it vanishes. So a fairly unique ability here, and it could be quite a dangerous one depending on the space that players have to work with. Luckily the turret itself has quite little in terms of defenses, so taking it down shouldn't be too much trouble. Okay, so that's enough of the easy stat blocks, and frankly the lack of TPKs around here is insulting. So it's time to introduce a more difficult enemy. The Patrol Bot has a 17 armor class and 126 hit points. It has the same resistances as previous stat blocks and also has the heat vents, immutable form, and target acquisition features. Additionally, it has a new feature called Evasive Maneuvers that allows it some extra defenses when using 30 feet or more of its movement. Taking a look at its actions, it has the same plasma laser and focus shot attacks from the turret, except the damage on both has increased. Now the Patrol Bot can only make 3 laser attacks as part of its multi-attack, meaning it builds up target acquisition a bit slower than the turret. However, the damage that each point of target acquisition provides the focus shot has tripled, going from 2 extra damage to now 6 extra damage per point. On top of that, the Patrol Bot has a new action. This action requires the bot to use 9 target acquisition in order to make the attack. Missile Barrage functions like a magic missile spell in that missiles automatically hit. There are 5 missiles, and each missile deals an average of 18 damage, meaning the attack itself deals 90 damage on average, and that damage can be spread between targets or all at one. So this Patrol Bot will definitely show your players that they shouldn't let it build up too much target acquisition. The Patrol Bot is quite deadly, and one balancing note to take home is that more than one Patrol Bot on the battlefield is exponentially difficult, because the more time they have to build up that target acquisition, the more pain is headed your player's way. So be mindful when placing more than one. So our next Toyota terror on my list of 7 things is the Prospector Drone. The Prospector Drone shares many of the same qualities as the previous constructs, but this enemy is one that does not fight, so we've got to give it some abilities to compensate. Now the first new feature is Data Cell, which states that after destroying the Prospector, you can grab its data cell that stores all of its memories. Now in Deep Rock Galactic, these drones go around collecting soil samples and mineral deposits for the rival company to then analyze. So do with that information what you will when your players inevitably cast Detect Thoughts on the data cell. The Prospector has the feature Haste Emitter, which gives haste to nearby allies. It has the action Reinforcements, which allows it to summon either 6 Shredders or a Patrol Bot depending on how you roll. And it can do that twice per day. And I mean, listen man, I was kidding about the TPK thing earlier. Well, sorta. So if you don't want 2 Patrol Bots to show your party the mineral samples that are 6 feet below them, just don't roll for it and summon the Shredders. It's fine, man. We've all been there. And finally, the Prospector has Emergency Threat Response that allows it to make an ally move and attack if the Prospector takes too much damage in one turn. Okay, so we've got 2 stat blocks left, and you best buckle up because it only gets worse, and by worse I mean better, from here. Next is the Nemesis. Again, much of the foundation of the stat block has not changed, so let's cover the new abilities. Cry for Help is, well, let's just say this ability puts Deep Rock Galactic snugly into the horror genre all by itself. The Nemesis can use this ability to mimic voices it hears, but also generate its own voice for commonly known races in your world. It uses this to yell out for help and lure unsuspecting creatures. The Nemesis has a self-destruct feature where when it dies, it creates 5 phase bombs. These phase bombs take a second to detonate, but will immediately detonate if it detects a creature moving away from it. So if players want to get away, they need to do so magically, or they need to destroy the bombs. The Nemesis also has a multi-attack of 2 Seize Claws, which have a long reach and grapple targets when they hit. The Nemesis also has Destroy, which allows it to take those potentially 2 grappled targets in its claws and crush them, dealing 78 points of damage on average with a failed save. And notably, the targets have disadvantage on that save because of the claws. The Nemesis is a deceptive and incredibly brutal creature if you cannot break free of its grapple. And that will be the main thing your players need to overcome if they want to destroy this enemy. So of course I know what you're thinking, and that's that this list of things that keeps Moradin up at night would not be complete without a legendary creature. Well, we've got one final stat block to go through, and that is the Caretaker. The Caretaker is a huge construct with a 20 armor class and 270 hit points. It has the immutable form feature, very high stats, and resistance to all damage. But it also has 2 new features. Air Intakes says that the Caretaker has 4 intakes that each have a slightly higher armor class, and 20 hit points. When these intakes are all destroyed, the Caretaker loses its damage resistance and 5 of its armor class. The Caretaker will eventually repair these intakes and regain the resistance and armor class, but it takes 3 rounds to do so. The Caretaker also has a data rack, which is similar to the Prospector's data cell, except this one contains the memories of all constructs under the Caretaker's command. Of course, it is up to you as the DM to decide the impact of that. The Caretaker has a multi-attack, allowing it to make 4 attacks that can be a mix of ranged and melee. It has the Plasma Force Field attack that has been stolen from the Repulsion Turret, except the Caretaker creates 4 panels instead of 3. It has a bonus action once per day to summon a Patrol Bot and 6 Shredders, and it has 3 legendary actions to spend on 3 different abilities. Create Turret costs 3 actions and allows the Caretaker to spawn a turret. Create Shredders costs only 1 action and creates 1 Shredder. And Phase Bomb costs only 1 action and creates a Phase Bomb similar to the ones the Nemesis can make. Overall, this Caretaker fight implements a damage phase mechanic with the air intakes, but also just incorporates most of the different enemy types and abilities from this video into a single stat block. The Caretaker's stat block is an entire encounter in and of itself, and all you need to do is find a battle map. So those were the Rival Tech stat blocks. If you made it this far into the video, you're a real one. So check the description for a link to the stat blocks. And I'll see you guys on Hoxxes.